Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're watching or whatever time this is for you. Um, Hello, my name is Joshua Horner, and I want to share some things with you. Share some things that I've learned and just some of my experiences in life. And talk about some hard things that if you hear a puppy, I have a puppy over here and a cat named Emma and a puppy named Spirit. Spirit, come here. Come here. He's a big boy. He's only almost 7 months old. But last week was a very challenging week for me. Let's just start off there. Last week was a very challenging week for me because I had two anniversaries in the same week, two death anniversaries of people who meant a lot to me in my life. My grandfather on Monday and my father on Friday. My grandfather passed away 5 years ago in a nursing home, and my father 15 years ago to suicide. Now, both of these men were big influences in my life. My grandfather, especially while he was alive, and my father, more so after his untimely suicide. I was 18 when my dad did that. I'm about to be 34. I was 28 when I lost my grandfather. So there was a 10 years that I had my grandfather after my dad. And I learned a lot. I learned so much from losing my dad at 18 that, I mean, it changed the course of my entire life. You know, I have a company now, stay in it, boom, boom, boom. If you want gear, hit me up. Uh, but it's a reminder to stay in the present and to look positively at the future. Respect the past, but don't live there. To fight mental health, to help your mental health, not to fight it. We want your health to be good, um, but to fight like depression and anxiety. To wear your reminders to stay in it and get the help you need and do the things that help you stay well. I don't know if I would have got there if my father's death wouldn't have occurred. It put me on this path of pursuing wellness, not initially, but it got me here now. And that's what I believe my mission on this world is to do, is to help others with similar circumstances and to manage their emotions and to leverage their skills and talents for the betterment of themselves and those around them. Yeah, and again, I don't know if that would have happened as fast or how it went down if my father wouldn't have done that. But again, last week was a challenge, so it's like Monday that was hitting, and usually I remember the people that I've lost by some sort of physical um, activity that's challenging, that challenges me in remembrance of them. And my life's been pretty busy lately. My life's been kind of hectic lately, doing a lot of things, involved in a lot of stuff, trying to show up for my clients, stay in it, the things that are involved in speaking. And I didn't really get to do a workout for my grandfather. But what I did do in remembrance of him is I went to an old spring in Ogletown that we used to get water in jugs, and I got a bunch of water, and I cheers it to him in remembrance of him. He taught me a lot at a young age. That I've written down some things from him that I learned. How I learned how to be a diplomat in a lot of ways. My grandfather was involved in a lot of things in the community, and I was with him all the time by his side as he went to these meetings or met with people. And I think I adopted my love of talking to people, because those of you who know me, I could talk for a while. We can get in it. I love it. I love connecting with people, and I think that was a huge thing that my grandfather, I learned from example from him. He was a hard worker. He was he was good in his boundaries. He knew how to say no. He was strong in that way. But there's other things that I learned that about from my grandfather, things that I don't necessarily want to do, but it's all a learning experience, right? And I think that's a beautiful thing when you can take the good and the bad and use the good and filter it to better your life and those around you. My father was one of the hardest working men I've ever known, and he gave way more than he received, and that's evident. Like now, as I look back over his life since he's gone, because when I was 18 and he took his life, like I did not have control of my emotions. I was very angry at him for doing that, for changing the direction of my life and putting eyes on me, but in a different way. That's the kid whose dad killed himself, or, oh my gosh, what did we say? And I've had these experiences with people where they didn't know what to say to me. Friends treated me differently. People that I knew, no judgment or offense to anyone. It's just a matter of what happened. And it made me feel even more alienated. I turned more into alcohol, partying, nihilism, didn't really care, you know? So I was very angry at him. And I wouldn't look at him in my thoughts. I miss him and I was sad that he had done that. But I wouldn't try to feel that, like be empathetic to his situation. I was angry at him and mad at what had happened to me. It didn't start until I got in a lot of trouble and I messed up a lot of things in school, with jobs, with cars, jail. Learned the hard way. Um, it's hard not having a father. It's hard not having the guidance system because you know he was gone. And your father is supposed to be like the rock, the voice of reason, the voice of judgment. That was taken away, and I kind of became a wild man, a wild boy, a wild boy, and had to learn many lessons the very hard way. Where if I had him in my life, I probably could have just turned to him and asked him questions instead of going down and making the wrong decisions. But again, I look at it as a blessing because now I have that life experience, and it took a while to get there, though. Because I'm not gonna lie, like I could get resentful and jealous of others who have their fathers in their family, or their life has been easier in ways. But then again, I'm like, you don't know what others are struggling with, man. What crosses they're bearing. So it's like, as I've grown in myself and in my character, the resentment and the jealousy has faded, um, because truly, the loss of these fathers, because my grandfather was a lot of my father as well. When my dad died at 18, my grandfather was there and I was still around, even though I was kind of messing up consistently. He still was a good influence in my life. But the death of these men led me to seek other father figures. And in my life at these times, there's been a lot of good guys in my life who have been good influences in my life. But um, there's some who haven't, because I find when you're in desperation, you tend to allow people into your life, right? If they're promising things, or they have, you think they have good intentions, sometimes you can get burned. I've experienced that somewhat in my life, um, probably because I was naive, maybe a little bit. I always look for the good in people, and sometimes people can take advantage of that. So that's something that I learned, just to be more aware, and I pray for discernment on some of those things. But to the point of it, with the death of these fathers, gave way to me finding the Father God, the Father in God, because He is a good Father. And where I would now seek for fatherly guidance, I turn to the Bible or the works of the Holy Fathers in the church on some things. And it's like you can really find Spirit, come here, buddy. It's okay. You can really find the way through Jesus Christ. He's the example. Like he literally is the example of the nature of the Father. And as a good father, he allows things to happen to you. You know, like the death of my father, I couldn't see why. I was so angry, not only at my dad, but at God too. And it took me away from God. But he, allowed this to happen. And I could continue down the path of destruction where I was hurting myself and then, you know, many around me. It was a train wreck. Or you turn into humility, accept your faults, work on yourself, and start taking the steps into righteousness, start correcting things, you know, that's a good father. Because again, you know, he won't give you anything you can't get yourself out of or like, work through. But it does take discipline, it takes willpower, it takes belief and faith. And, I guess I just wanted to talk about my my dad and my grandfather today because I usually make a post or something, but I didn't this year. I didn't because I was being with like my family and I was like being in the moment. My grandmother had just recently went into the hospital again and was spending time there. I spent my Friday, my dad's day, in the hospital with my gram. And usually I do a workout for him and I did. Shout out to shout out to High Street Body Shop for the 5 a.m. spin class that kicked my butt. I did that for my father. He was always adamant about my fitness. And I remember at a young age, he was always trying to get me to do push-ups or work out with him. And I was like, no, that's stupid. If he could only see me now. 15 years is a long time to just enter adulthood at 18, right? To not have your father. I miss my dad. And I sometimes think on what life would be if he was still here, you know? What would he say? How would things be? I think about that with my mother too. How would it be? But I don't spend much time there because that's not the reality of of things. I take what I've learned from him, from them, and again I go back to I learned some things what not to do. With my father, he gave way more than he received. That is true, and he was the epitome of that. But I think he poured from an empty cup often, and it it messed him up. It pulled him away from his family, from God. And in some way, he probably thought he was doing the right moves on some things at the sacrifice of himself. And in the end, it did sacrifice himself. He took his life. It was too much for him. So I learned to reach out for help when I'm struggling and to be truthful on it, because you know I know I post a lot of positive stuff, but there's days where I'm like, man, I just want to hide from the world. I just want to get away. I don't want to have to be on. We're human. And I think that's very important. You know, you can be a superhero to a lot of people, but at the end of the day, you're human and you have needs and you fall back and you mess up and you need help too. And that's really important. I learned that from my dad, to get help, and to be humble in the help. And from my grandfather, I learned a lot about humility from him having pride. And I love you, Pop, but uh, my grandfather died because he didn't take care of his health, and that has been a huge testimony for me to take care of my health and try to be as healthy as I can for those that I love and people in my life, and to help others get there too. I think it's a responsibility that we have to ourselves and into God, to take care of ourselves. He gave us this body. It's a gift. We need to take care of it. Mind, body, soul. And in doing that, we live an example for others to do the same. I live that. I love that. And so I thank you, Pup, for that. Inadvertently, both of these men mean so much to me. And it's hard. It's hard not having them. But I'm appreciative for the memories I do have and what I've learned since they've been gone in looking back on their lives. And how I look now to Christ and to God the Father to be a direction and to be the Father that I need. I wrote some questions that I've touched on. What have I learned? Learn to ask for help, learn to work hard. And one of the biggest things that I've learned is to not pretend that you know it all. Because that is something that I fell into. Like I acted like I didn't care. Everything's cool, everything's fine, I'm good. And that I knew it all. Like there is a reason, but like I acted like it's all good. And I don't know it all. None of us know it all. And I didn't know not even, maybe 85% of the stuff that I thought I knew in the path that I was going down. No one could tell me nothing. Humility. I feel like sometimes pride, at least for me, pride like got me so far. Like I built up this persona. It was all defense and fear, but it got me so far to where I don't want to be that anymore. I don't want to be this puffed up dude, you know, living behind a wall of insecurity, painted with strength. It's like, nah, you can't live that way. At least I couldn't. So, as I focused on the Father, a lot of things changed in my life. A lot of things changed for the better. A lot of ease on some pain with the loss of these people in my life, and the hope that I will see them again. That's been a big thing. It's like, in Gladiator, when the dude's like, "I'll see you again, but not yet." That's how I feel about all the ones I've lost. It's like I'm gonna show up here for the best as I can for the people that are still here, and we'll have a great celebration when it's all said and done. And that gives me hope. That gives me strength to keep going forward. Um, so seek God and not seek alcohol or drugs or women or whatever to fill that void as I was doing, because you know immediate gratification feels good, right? And if you just keep feeding that immediate gratification, well, then you need more, and then you need more, and then you need more. I mean, you're never satisfied. You got to play the long game, work for the future, for those around you. Delay your gratification and face the things that hurt you. Another big thing I learned is to look at it, to look at the painful stuff, not to hide it, not to not talk about it, not to shove it down, because it'll bubble up in ways that you don't want and you might not be prepared for. So you got to face the things. You got to stay humble. You got to seek God, higher power. You got to surround yourself with good people who care about you, who are positive and want to help and want to be there and want to show up. Not ones that are going to take advantage of your weakness or take advantage of you when you're feeling low, like, or use false sense security on you. Surround yourself with good people who positively care about you, who support and encourage you. Gravitate to those people. I think I ran away from people like that for a long time because it felt uncomfortable to me. Like I was so used to tragedy and upheaval and things moving and people backstabbing and backsliding and all this stuff, that when people were being nice and being genuine, it was weird to me. I had to get over that, and that's been a blessing. So thank y'all who are in my life who help and support and guide and love me. I appreciate you. Keep going. Keep going. No matter what the tragedies that befall you, keep your butt going and keep growing. Keep looking to learn. What can this situation teach me? I know it might be really hard when your father takes his life or your best friend takes his life in front of you, to see what good could possibly come out of this. But it's there. just got to look. Keep your eyes and your ears open, heart and your mind. Give back. Give more than you receive. That's a big testament that I've learned too, is like, give more than you receive. And that's just, I've said this all the time, it's not monetary. Because, yo, straight up, I can't give monetary that well yet. I'm working on it. We're working on it here, Stay in It. We're working on it to do some cool things. But sometimes that's just an ear, or that's showing up to help move, or you're sitting with a friend, not even saying a word through something tragic. You're being engaged in someone. You're really listening to them. That's giving. Making people feel heard, seen, and showing up in your life. Living your best life. I know you've heard that, but like really living your best life and taking the steps to do that. You got to be active in it. You got to be active in your healing and your growth. Keep going. Give back. So I encourage any of you who've stayed with me this far. We're at 21 minutes and 25 seconds. Thank you. To be appreciative of what you have. See the lessons, the learning experience, and the opportunities that are certainly there. Keep going. To my grandfather and to my father, I love you both very much. And I thank you both very much for the lessons that you taught me and the love you gave me. I'll see you again, but not yet. I still have a lot of work to do. God bless you all. Keep going. Stay in it. Let's